Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Man, it's really great to see you. You might not have been here last week, but I was not here last week. I was on vacation. And I want to honestly say, I miss getting to hang out with y'all. I mean, it was so cool. I heard Jordan did a great job, and so thankful to Jordan for doing that. And it's so, I think it's fine to bring people in to speak that are not part of our church family. But it's so cool to hear from somebody that's just a part of our church family, and you're like, that dude's amazing. I mean, I get to sit next to him, and he, and there's all kind of people like that in our church. So very thankful for that. Two things I want you to know super fast before we get started. Some of you have started coming to one church, but you want to make this your church home, and maybe you want to find out more about how you can do that, or you just want to learn more about the church, or you want to take your next step to be connected. We're doing something in August that is called the Get to Know One Church Cookout. We did one back in the spring. It was really successful, and for those of you that have been around here for a long time, it's really similar to One Church 101, but more fun with hamburgers and hot dogs, okay? So this is the idea. So if you're interested in that, then I want you to text OC Cookout to 97,000, and we'll send you all the information about the Get to Know One Church Cookout. It's for those of you that it's your very first Sunday here, your fourth Sunday here, or maybe it's your 20th Sunday here, but you're ready to find out more and maybe potentially get plugged in, and we would love for you to be a part of that. I had a blast last time. It'll be at the Connect building. Who knows? We'll be right on the verge by the time we get to this cookout. Maybe the theater will be open, maybe not. For those of you that haven't been here for a couple weeks, this is interesting. This is our very last series that we'll do here at the YMCA. It's Retrospect. It's all about looking back over the last few years and seeing what God's done and some lessons that He's taught us, starting with Scripture, but some lessons that He's taught us practically over the last 9 years as we've been doing services, and this One Church has become a thing. And so we're diving into that, but it's going to be our last series before we head down to the theater. The series could be 6 weeks. The series could be 9 weeks. It could even be 10 weeks. I don't know. I'm hoping for 6, but it's going to last until we move down there. That's sort of where we're at on that. We're waiting to see when all that's going to finish up. One other thing I want you to know is if you're here and you're looking to find your people, I need my people, and you don't have those people at One Church yet, your very first step to find your people is to let us know you're here. And so you can fill your bulletin out, or you can stop by the Connect corner and they have these for you. And you can just let them know that you're here, and they'll get your name and phone number, and you'll get to meet some people, and then you'll start getting some texts and some emails that let you know about things that are going on here so that you can get plugged in. That's your first step, very first step. The thing to do right now is if you want to find your people, let somebody know that you're here. You can make our day by doing that, and you get a free t-shirt. So who doesn't like a free t-shirt? All right, today we're going to talk about the idea of protecting ourselves from big crashes in life. Jesus, in the most famous speech in the history of humanity, believe it or not, even more famous than Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, even more famous than John F. Kennedy's Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You, But What You Can Do For Your Country. Like, even the most famous speech ever given in the history of humanity was a speech that Jesus gave called the Sermon on the Mount. And one of the things that Jesus said was this. He said, listen, guys, be so careful, because you can build things with your life. You can build businesses, you can even build families, you can build a persona, you can build a reputation, you can definitely build a church, quote unquote. You can build all kind of different things that look really good and they look really stable. You can build you pick your thing, and it can look great, but if the thing that's underneath what you're building is not solid, then at some point it's going to come crashing down. Here's something, just you may not be interested, but from our church's standpoint, I never wanted to be a pastor. Ever wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be a coach, and then after I wanted to be a coach, I sort of wanted to be do schoolwork, administrator, all that kind of stuff. Never wanted to step into this. But as it happened and we began going down this path, and One Church sort of became a thing on its own, one of my motivations, one of the things that my heart really desired for our church would be for us to be a church where people wouldn't get hurt. Now, I'm not talking bad. I love our local churches, but here was just my experience. My experience is the church is the greatest invention, if you want to call it that, in the history of humanity. It's supposed to be the body of Jesus, this community of Jesus people, as complicated and as different as we are, that come together under the uniting theme of Jesus' self-sacrificial love that we try to live out, and we should be the greatest thing the world's ever seen. But the problem with churches is that like they're all made up of people, you know? Every single church is made up of people, and they're people like me with flaws and imperfections. And what I saw was that the churches, my dad was a pastor, and so I ate breakfast like every Saturday with a bunch of pastors. And so I feel like I've got like 4 lifetimes worth of church hurt stories. And I would just see these guys, not my dad so much, although there were times, but these guys that would come in and just broken by the church, which I felt like was, I mean, that's like you see, I went to the hospital well, and the hospital made me sick, the doctor made me sick, the teacher made me stupid, you know, the coach made me slow, the church made me broken. Doesn't make any sense. And so one of my like real genuine heart desires is that we wouldn't start this thing and take on this name of the church and then unintentionally over the years develop a culture where we end up hurting people. And it can happen so easily. And so today I want to tell you a few thoughts that have come to the mind over the years. I know they said it, and I'm just going to acknowledge it. So we're in a gym, the air conditioners aren't working perfect. Here's why I'm telling you that. We're shortening this service. And I'm telling you that so that you can lock in. Because I really have something I think that's very important to tell you. And I want you to like lean into this thing, okay? And we're gonna get there fast. We're gonna skip a lot of the build up to it, and we're gonna get to the point fast. But I think it's something important. Here's why it's important. Here's why you should pay attention. Some of you are a part of this church, and you think this church is important, and it's gonna make a difference in Hartsville and McBee and Lamar and Oates and all those different areas. And you are like me, and you don't want this church to ever turn into something that hurts people. Whenever churches are meant to be, and again, I'm not putting down churches, it just happens because it's people. Whenever churches are meant to be the thing that brings healing and hope and restoration to communities in the world through Jesus. Like, you don't want that to happen. If you don't want that to happen and you're a part of this church or a part of another church, lean into what we're gonna say. If you have a family, and you would love not to build your family so that one day it crashes, lean into what I'm saying. If you got a business that involves people or organization or something that you do or a nonprofit that involves people and it does good things, but you don't want to build it up so that just one day it crashes and the thing that's meant to bring healing ends up bringing hurt unintentionally. Nobody would ever mean to do that, but unintentionally. If you don't want that to happen, then lean into this. I want to tell you a few things today super quickly, I think, that help us build a foundation. It's your team, it's your friend group, it's your, I don't know, your thing that you're doing for good that is meant for good, but that you know this, things that are meant for good can cause a lot of harm. And so we're going to try to keep, let's fireproof our churches, let's fireproof our families. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. Fireproof our businesses. Okay, I talked too long. We're going to Philippians chapter 2 if you got your Bibles. Let me set up Philippians. Philippians is written to some early Christians in a church called Philippi. Here's something cool about the town called Philippi, if you're a Bible nerd, that you might appreciate. Philippi was obviously a town in the ancient Roman Empire. Maybe obviously is not the right word. It's a town in the ancient Roman Empire, if you didn't know that. But here was what the town was made up of largely. Retired Roman soldiers. There were a bunch of retired Roman soldiers who lived in the town of Philippi. Now in the Roman culture, especially the military culture, honor was the preeminent value. Honor, okay? Honor sounds good, but think about it. Honor is the preeminent value. And you say, well, that's great. There's something better than honor that Jesus would bring onto the scene. And you'll see there's some problems with honor being the most important thing. And so you got these ex-military people, they're extremely patriotic to the Roman Empire. They're extremely patriotic and loyal to Caesar and to their generals and all that. Okay, so let's just jump in here. So Paul says we're trying to build this new community not based on honor, although honor is not terrible, but it's based on self-sacrificial love, okay, which is better than honor. Paul would say, because Jesus said, and Jesus showed. Therefore, since it's hard, and sometimes it's difficult, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love and being one in spirit and one in mind. Today we're keeping short, but I was going to skip ahead a few chapters, and Paul's going to show you there's some kind of argument going on in this church. Okay, raise your imaginary hand. Don't really raise your hand. But if I were to ask you how many of you are church hurt, don't raise your hand. If you've been church hurt, many of you would raise your hand. And so the people in Philippi are in danger of being a part of the thing that's meant to bring healing, but is going to accidentally just bring more hurt, which is it's like a tragedy, you know? And there's these two women in particular that have people that are loyal to them that are arguing, and we won't get there. You can read the whole book. It's not a very long book. You can read it on your own if you want to. And but Paul's going to talk about that later. He said, listen, like, we got to be together. One of the reasons we chose the name One Church, there's several, but was this verse. It's like, wouldn't it be great if we could have a church that was united in one spirit, that didn't get in arguments about the political stuff? By political stuff, I do mean Democrats and Republicans, but I also mean the color of the carpet, for those of you that have been in church for a while. Wouldn't it be great if we were like one on the most important things, and we can develop a culture where we were one, where we're united, where we're different. Some of you are extroverts, and some of you are introverts, and some of you like the loud music, and some of you wish we just prayed for the whole hour. You know, we're all kind of different, and that's okay. We're all kind of different people. But wouldn't it be great if we could develop a culture where we're united, where you're not getting your little faction over here that's all ticked off because we're not doing a graveyard up at the theater, and somebody else gets their little faction that's really angry because we didn't, have a bluegrass band, and everybody's got their own little thing that they're pulling for, and they're getting their constituents together for, and would it be great if we had a church? And again, there's lots of churches that do this, but wouldn't it be great if we could be a church that was united in spirit, despite all of our differences that make it beautiful, that make it a tapestry, which is what the church is meant to be? And wouldn't it be great if we could be together? And so they were be of one mind. He's begging them. He's begging them. I mean, you can almost hear the agony in his voice. Paul's like, I laid my life on the line to help start this church. Oh my goodness, did I just spend my entire life doing something that's just going to make the world worse? Because that's what's going to happen if you're going to take the brand, he's saying to the Philippians, you're going to take the brand church and ruin it. Because you're arguing with each other about things that aren't really important. Okay, maybe they even are important, but it's things that you need to navigate together. And there's a better way to do this. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in, everybody say the H word with me, rather in, okay, so we see the humility and we're like, that makes sense. I would expect to see that word in the Bible. Remember I told you this was a colony of mostly retired Roman soldiers? Humility would not be something that was thought of as a good attribute to them. Humility would be thought as weakness. Humility would be thought as showing that you're less important, that you don't matter. They would have viewed humility in the same category that we view like uncleanliness, okay? You put like a bucket of things that nobody wants to be. This talks too much, humble, unclean, humility, they didn't think humility was a good thing. That's all happened over the last 2,000 years. We think humility, some of us think humility is a good thing. Even if you're not a Christian, you don't know it, but you're thinking Christianly because you just can't help it. It's changed the world so much. He's like, listen here, ex-Roman soldiers who think that humility is weakness. Humility is not weakness. The guy who rose from the dead demonstrated humility. He whipped death and sin itself. Humility is actually strength when it's done the right way. Not when it's done so that you're a doormat and people run over you all the time. Not when it's done so that you can feel sorry for yourself. Not when you're humble so that you play poor as me. No. He's like, there's a version of humility that is at the core of what it means to be a Jesus follower, at the core of what it means to be a true man, a true woman, a true human being, a true image bearer that brings light to the world, instead of taking the thing that's meant to bring hope to the world and turning it into a disaster, which you were on the verge of doing, Church of Philippi. That would be a tragedy. It's like, so be humble. And again, they would have all leaned forward in their seats because, believe it or not, that was a brand new thought, that humility was good. Okay. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. Again, highly unusual, very strange, not normal teaching, not strange to us because we've been living under the influence of Jesus for 2,000 years, even if we're not Christians. But to them, this is like somebody coming in and saying this. Now, I'm not saying this is true. Just hear me out. You ready? We have definitive proof that cars are ruining the world. It's a ruiner, and Jesus people, we ought to be about having a great world to live in. So we have a basket on the way out, and that's where you're going to drop your keys. Because you're walking from here on. Right? Now for us, we're like, but we're Americans, but we drive our car, which is fine. I'm not saying we should, but that's how, in some ways, that's how radical this was. We're like, you want me to walk? And then, but then the Roman retired soldiers are like, you want me to be humble? I thought it was about honor, like my honor, right? So it's completely radical. Okay, and put others first. Verse 5. In your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, the same mindset. You want to know what your goal is if you're a follower of Jesus? Your goal is to have the same mindset as Jesus. Because in many cases, your actions, not all cases, hear me out in a minute, but if your mindset is right, your actions will flow out of that mindset. Okay, that's sometimes it's supposed to be how it works. If we get our mind right, then our actions will flow out of our mindset. So you want to know what it means to be a mature follower of Jesus. It's that your mindset more and more matches up to the mindset of Jesus, who was, okay, let's see if you can do this. I won't make you do it. It's a word that starts with H and it rhymes with bumble. Humble, okay? He was humble. He was humble. It was somebody who put other people first. Was somebody who did not pursue his own interests above everything else. It was somebody who did not make his own honor the number one goal in the world. I mean, so this is the way ex-Roman military officers, retired Roman soldiers, this is the way, Paul says. This is the way. And I know you've been programmed your whole life to think that there's another way that's going to get you to where you need to be. But this is the way, Paul says, to be humble. Now, I'm going to read this. This is a poem here, and I'm going to read it really fast. I'm going to go straight through. But this is a poem that's about Jesus. So for those of you that have lots of questions, like, how was Jesus the Son of God? Is Jesus God? How did Jesus say to God, my God, how have you forsaken me? If he is God. Those are amazing questions. Those are deep questions. But this is some poetry, a little song that they wrote very early on in the church that appears to be repeated several different places. I'm just going to read it to you. If we have time on the back end, we might dive into some of these mysteries. Who? This is Jesus. Being the very nature of God, did not consider his equality with God as something to be used for his own advantage. This is the mindset that we're trying to copy. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in the appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven, on earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence. He's writing this letter from a distance back to them. Continue to work out your salvation. Continue to not only have the mindset, but have the actions that go with the mindset. All right, so 2 minutes worth of context on this. Then we'll get to the point and shut it down, okay? So everybody's listening fast. The context is this. This is very political, believe it or not, what you just read. Because the coin that was going around at this time had a phrase on it that said, Caesar is Lord. And in this little poem, in this little song that Paul writes here, that's going around, there is a twist on that would have gotten you in hot water. You know, if you're back in the Romans back in the day, and you're like, what should I not bring up at our dinner parties? Well, let's don't bring up politics, right? And then all of a sudden somebody steps into the conversation and they say, Jesus is Lord. That would be a problem. Because believe it or not, that was a political statement, because the slogan that was written, graffitied, and imprinted on coins around the Roman Empire at this time was Caesar is Lord. And Paul uses the exact same words, the exact same verbiage, and he says, believe it or not, the guy who sits on the wannabe throne in the city of Rome that people think is the capital of the world is not Lord. Despite the fact that he has the honor, despite the fact that he lives for himself, despite the fact that he has thousands of servants, despite the fact that every knee bows whenever they see him coming, the real person that is Lord is Jesus, and Jesus actually won that position. Jesus actually got to that place. Jesus actually showed off his lordship by allowing himself to die naked and humiliated in front of his friends for the sake of love. And humility is the thing that wins, is what Paul is saying. And believe it or not, because humility and love, and there's some strength to it too. It's not just weakness. This strong humility is actually more powerful than the seat that Caesar himself sits in. And Jesus is Lord, not Caesar. Which would have been just so controversial. So here's our takeaway. It's people that follow that man. If you are one of those people that follow that man, here's our first step. If you say, I want to follow Jesus, I want to be better at following Jesus, I want to be more like him, here's the first step, because let's just go to it. If you want to be like Jesus, your first step is to go last. It's to go last. Okay, I told you that a lot of times mindsets produce actions. It's totally true. Mindsets produce actions. But there are times in life where if we want to shape our mindset, we need to allow our actions to lead the way. Let me give you a quick example. Okay, very quick. If I see you eating lunch this week and I walk in and you're at a restaurant and you're eating a bowl of fruit and a salad with vinaigrette, not even ranch dressing, okay? And I look at, that sounds pretty healthy, right? Don't you agree? A salad. Now let me ask you, why are you eating, somebody just say it out loud. Why are you eating for lunch when you could be eating barbecue? Why are you eating fruit and a salad with vinaigrette? Anybody? Diet. What else? Healthy, you want to be healthy, but maybe, okay, let me put this two ways. Are you doing it because you're healthy, or are you doing it because you want to be healthy? How about both? Agreed? Does that make sense? So whenever you act in humility, sometimes we can act in humility. If you are maturing in your faith, you can act in humility because you are humble. You've developed your mindset to be so much like Jesus that now you can live it out. Does that make sense? And so you eat the fruit and salad because you are healthy. And so you act humbly and you go last. I'm gonna give you a couple quick ways that you can do that. You go last because you are humble like Jesus. Now some of you would say, I need to get humble like Jesus. How do I get humble like Jesus? Let's back up. How do you get healthy? Well, maybe you can get healthy by taking an action as if you are healthy for lunch tomorrow. What would that be? Eat your salad and your fruit. See, not only does eating your salad and your fruit show that you are healthy, it can also be an indicator that you're trying to get healthy. Okay, here's why I say that. I want to give you some things that you can do if you want to get humble really quickly. If you want to get humble, you want to let your actions lead the way, because not only does your mindset determine your actions can shape your mindset. Everybody got the concept there? Here's 3 things you can do. Here's 3 ways you can go last. One is this. You can literally go last in line. I grew up, my dad was a pastor. Okay, and I see sometimes churches, and there's, again, nothing wrong with this, but I see churches, and it's got like reserved for pastor parking. Or it's got, you go to events, and it's like you're eating food. I get to go to some events with pastors. It's like pastor goes first, pastors go first, pastors go first. I didn't grow up with that. I was so blessed to grow up in a culture where my dad was the pastor, and he was going last every time. Every single time. You want a practical way that you can be humble so that your actions shape your mindset? You can literally go last whenever your family's fixing food. Now, you can take it to extremes, because if your whole family's here, y'all can all be fighting for the last spot, and it just becomes ridiculous, you know? It doesn't mean you never go first. It doesn't mean this is legalism. It doesn't mean this makes you awesome because you went last. But you know, followers of Jesus, if you would like to do something that would reinforce the mindset of Jesus and you want to practice humility, you can practice humility every single time your family gets together by going last. Just saying. At church. Anyway, okay, let me tell you another one. You can go last. Y'all know what FILO stands for? First in, last out. It's a great work ethic thing, right? But something I found in our church, I don't do this perfectly. I want to model for our church the culture that I want us to have so that we don't end up hurting people. So you know what I want to do? I don't always do it. I want to, when all of y'all are gone and everybody's done and we're worn out and we're tired from loading up and everybody's ready to go eat and it's hot and we're sweaty and we've given everything we have, I really want to be the guy that's still in here picking up trash on the floor. And the reason for that is I've seen it modeled by a few people who did it right. Like, you can go last. You can literally be the last one doing the work. Now, I'm not saying, sometimes there are physical limitations and sometimes there's time constraints, but God, shouldn't Christians be, wouldn't it be great if you were at work and you were the person that stuck around and you were picking up trash when nobody else then you didn't realize anybody was looking? And everybody was gone home, and you were the one putting in the extra work. Wouldn't it be great if some people saw you doing that and said, well, you must be a Christian? They're not going to say that, unfortunately, but what if we could build that brand for Jesus? Because if you want to be like Jesus, the best way to be like Jesus is to start by practicing humility, by practicing it, literally going last. I'll tell you another way you can go last. I'm just for a church, because I'm telling you church history. I made a commitment when we started, I'm getting the worst possible parking space. I'm going to fight for, I'm not saying, I guess you could always park further away. I don't mean that, right? And I've seen some of our other leaders in our church that do that. I want to go last. I don't do it perfectly. And I'm cutting to the chase. I'm leaving out some of the meat and potatoes of this thing. But what I'm asking you is this. For every person in the room that says, I want to be like Jesus, I want to be more like Jesus, then a great place to start is by practicing humility. You can't be any more like Jesus than when you practice humility. Humility doesn't mean I'm not valuable. It doesn't mean I'm not important. It means I choose to go last. It means I choose to put other people ahead of me in small, practical ways. And if your mindset is there, congratulations, keep living that out. If your mindset is not where you want it to be, then hack your mindset by doing some small, practical things this week, like being the last person in line, like being the last person to clean up, like being the person that parks the furthest away because you're saving the closest parking spot for the people that you don't even know. Those things are here, close on this. That's the reason I love it when people give financially to church, not even our church. Here's why. We want to put God first in our money. If we don't put God first in our money, it causes all kinds of problems eventually. So that's a mindset, right? But when you give, you're hacking your mindset by taking an action. And when you take that action, the action Adjust your mindset. And so I'm just going to encourage you this week, followers of Jesus. Can you go last? Can you put other people first? If you want to be like Jesus, can you practice humility? You'll never look more like Jesus than when you practice humility. It doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It doesn't mean that you're not perfect. It just means that you want to give other people the preferred parking. You want to give other people the first shot in going through the line. It means you want to let other people go, and you're glad to do the dirty work. You're not too good for it, whether you're a retired Roman centurion or whether you're a teacher or whether you're a student. You're not too good for that? Absolutely not. Believe it or not, strength is found in the human beings who choose to be humble out of love, and Jesus is the greatest example of that. So I want to close this in prayer. And some of you have never given your life to God and really committed to Him because you thought He was a God who bullied people. What if the God that you can give your life to is actually the God who is humble enough that He came to serve people? And that is who the creator of the universe is. And you don't have to be so afraid of Him that He's going to abuse you. He's here to serve, and He showed it through Jesus, and then we should do the same thing. Father, help us to serve other people. Father, help us to go last. Help us to put other people first. Help us not to have some form of pathetic lip service about being Christians, but in reality, we go first. Help us to go last intentionally because our mindset is like the mindset of Jesus. But even when our mindset is not like the mindset of Jesus, help our actions to be like the actions of Jesus so that we can reverse engineer our mindset and we can keep changing that and keep being formed and modeled after Jesus Himself, who showed that true strength is not found in self-honor, it's found in humility and giving out of love for other people. Oh, God, our world's desperate for us to do that and to show them what Christians and what the church is meant to look like. A bunch of humble people who choose to go last and let other people go first. I ask you to help us to do that. In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, so thankful you're here. If you want to fill out a Connect card, get a t-shirt, let us know you're here. Stop by the Connect corner. Otherwise, we'll see you next Sunday. Y'all have a great week.